even for those of us who closely follow, like, the latest in epigenetics, there's still this lingering subconscious assumption we have.
Oh, absolutely. That the foundational architecture of our DNA is just permanent.
Right. You picture that static double helix from a textbook, and you think, well, my gene expression might fluctuate based on my diet or, my stress levels. But the hardware itself, that is a fixed destiny.
Yeah, and that binary view is incredibly comforting. But it completely falls apart when you start looking at biology not as a closed mechanical loop, but as an open programmable system.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive is all about an innovative and, frankly, fascinating approach to personal well-being called the regenetics method.
It really is a paradigm shift.
It is. And for you listening, we're acting as your guide into this today.
Correct.
We are pulling from the foundational texts of Saul Luckman, specifically Conscious Healing and Potentiate Your DNA.
Along with some really compelling firsthand accounts from practitioners like Brendan D. Murphy and Dr. Julie Two-Moon.
Right. And our mission today is to explore this framework where sound, conscious intention, and genetics intersect. It's an entirely new way to look at human potential.
And we should frame this properly for you. This isn't some quick fix or overnight hack. It's a holistic, deeply structured journey into how we actually interface with our own biology.
So let's start with the basics, or I guess redefining the basics. We've all heard the endless debates over so-called junk DNA.
Right. The mainstream science label for the 95 to 98% of our DNA that doesn't code for physical proteins.
Yeah, and most of you joining us probably already know that it isn't actually junk. But the regenetics framework takes us a step further, right?
It does. It re-envisions this vast non-coding space as potential DNA, or what geneticists call transposons, which are basically jumping DNA.
Jumping DNA, I love that term.
It's very accurate. And this leans heavily on the wave genetics research of a biophysicist named Peter Garyev.
Wait, wave genetics, so we're moving out of standard chemistry here.
Exactly. Garyev argues that this potential DNA is actually highly responsive to language, light, and sound. Specifically, a type of energy called torsion energy.
Hold on, I understand chemical signaling, but how does a biological molecule, like a microscopic strand of nucleic acid, listen to language or sound?
Well, it requires looking at the chromosome through the lens of biophysics. Guryev's team demonstrated that chromosomes function fundamentally as holographic biocomputers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they utilize the DNA's own inherent electromagnetic radiation to read and write information. So its coiled, fractal structure makes it function exactly like an antenna.
So it's an energetic interface.
Yeah.
The energy heating the antenna is converted directly into a biological instruction.
Yes. What's fascinating here is how this shifts our understanding from biology being a fixed physical structure to a programmable linguistic blueprint.
To put that in tech terms for you listening, it's like owning a top-of-the-line smartphone. We always assume that the 2% of coding DNA was the entire phone.
Like it's just a calculator app.
Right. But that 98% non-coding DNA is actually the Wi-Fi receiver, the Bluetooth array, and the entire app store.
Exactly. It has massive potential.
But it's just sitting there in airplane mode, waiting for a specific signal to initiate the download.
That is a perfect way to describe it. The hardware is fully intact.
But, I mean, if our DNA is this programmable torsion wave receiver, how does our current medical understanding even begin to interact with it?
Well, unfortunately, it's severely under-equipped to provide that signal. Which brings us to Dr. Larry Dossey's framework of the 3 eras of medicine.
Oh, right. This is heavily cited in the source material.
Yeah, so Era 1 is mechanistic medicine. It treats the human body strictly as a physical machine.
Which is great for emergencies, right?
Yeah.
Like if you break an arm, you absolutely want an Era 1 doctor to set the bone.
100%. But it fails spectacularly with chronic, systemic, and energetic dysfunctions.
Because it's just looking at the parts.
Right. Then we have Era 2, which is mind-body medicine.
So that acknowledges things like the placebo effect or how chronic stress physically degrades our immune system.
Yes. But Era 2 still operates under the assumption that consciousness is localized entirely within the physical brain, sending chemical signals downward.
Let me try to map this out with a car analogy.
Mm-hmm.
If Era 1 is the mechanic fixing the physical engine of the car,
Okay. Yeah.
and Era 2 is the driver managing their anxiety so they don't crash the car.
Right.
Is Era 3 like upgrading the orbital GPS satellite the car uses to navigate the world?
That captures the non-local nature of it perfectly. Era 3 operates on the premise that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe.
Meaning it bypasses the physical constraints of space and time altogether.
Exactly. And regenetics is a prime example of an Era 3 approach. It uses hyperdimensional sound and intention to send a signal to that satellite.
Your overarching bioenergy blueprint.
Yes, you alter the energetic coordinates up there, and the physical vehicle naturally aligns itself down here to match.
Okay, but this forces the obvious question. How do you actually hack the GPS? How do you send that signal?
This is where we get into the actual mechanics. The very first stage of the regenetics method is a 30-minute process called potentiation.
Right, potentiation. And this utilizes a 528 hertz tuning fork.
Yes. And for context, 528 hertz corresponds to the mi note on the ancient Solfeggio scale.
Which is known as a frequency associated with genetic repair, right?
Exactly. But the tuning fork isn't used alone. It's combined with a highly specific sequence of chanted vowel sounds.
Now, I have to play the skeptic for a second. I can follow the leap from Era 1 to Era 2. But Era 3 feels like a massive jump.
It does sound like a lot at first.
You're telling me that by simply ringing a tuning fork and chanting vowels in a room, I am physically repatterning my genetic material.
Well, it comes back to that antenna principle we talked about and the science of cymatics.
Cymatics is the visual study of sound, right?
Right.
How frequencies organize matter.
Yes. When you strike a 528 hertz tuning fork, you generate an acoustic wave. But when you couple that acoustic wave with focused intention and linguistically keyed vowel chants.
The vowels act as a resonant code.
Exactly. A code that matches the structural geometry of the DNA. You are generating a torsion wave.
So you're broadcasting at the exact resonant frequency that makes the DNA antenna vibrate.
You've got it. It resets the physical subtle body's bioenergy blueprint into what the texts call an infinity circuit.
An infinity circuit, like a continuous figure-8 pattern of energy.
Yes, flowing harmoniously. And crucially, this sound-based activation seals a major energetic leak known as the fragmentary body.
The fragmentary body. I want to spend a moment on this because the texts refer to this as the slavery yoke.
It's a very intense term, but it fits. It's a severe bioenergetic disruption located around the second chakra.
And if you're listening to this and you've ever found yourself, completely paralyzed by burnout, yet simultaneously consumed by guilt that you aren't being productive.
That's a classic symptom.
Right. The sources suggest this isn't a psychological failing. It is a literal bioenergetic leak.
Your vital life energy is draining out of your subtle anatomy before it can flow upward to nourish your higher faculties.
Wow. So potentiation essentially fuses that broken circuit. It seals the leak.
It does, but what really grounds this in biology, rather than just abstract theory, is the timeline.
Yes, the timeline is so specific.
Right, because this is not an overnight magic trick. The process of potentiation takes exactly 42 weeks to fully integrate.
Just over 9 months, the exact gestation period of a human fetus.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this timeline shows that true transformation is an organic, unfolding process.
It's a literal biospiritual rebirth. You are gestating a new, harmonized version of your own energetic self.
Exactly. It takes time for the torsion signal to cascade down from the blueprint into the physical biology.
But once that 9-month gestation is complete, the journey doesn't just end, does it?
No, it actually moves deeper. The regenetics method employs an archaeological approach.
Archaeological, meaning it works from the surface subtle bodies down to the deepest, most primary layers of our existence.
Correct. So having a sealed physical energy circuit doesn't mean you automatically know how to use that newfound energy.
Right, which brings us to the next stage, articulation.
Which begins at the 5-month mark of potentiation, so there's some overlap.
And articulation focuses on the mental subtle body, right?
Yes. It helps enhance creativity and dismantle rigid thought forms and limiting beliefs that no longer serve you.
Because your vital energy is no longer bleeding out of that second chakra, it can move up to support a clearer mind.
Exactly. Then, exactly 42 weeks after potentiation starts, you enter elucidation.
Okay, so we're shifting from the mental body into the emotional subtle body now.
And biologically, this is where it gets incredibly fascinating. The texts link elucidation to the activation of the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex. Yeah. Neuroscientist Paul MacLean referred to those as the angel lobes, didn't he?
He did, because they are the anatomical seat of our highest human virtues. Things like empathy, compassion, nuanced understanding.
So how does an energetic shift physically activate the prefrontal cortex?
Well, most people operate heavily from the amygdala. That's the ancient fear, stress, and survival center.
Right, the flight response.
Exactly. But during elucidation, As the emotional body is cleared of these chronic inherited trauma patterns, it creates what the method calls a unified consciousness field.
You literally move your energetic center of gravity from reactive survival to profound empathy.
You stop defending yourself against your environment and start connecting with it.
That is beautiful. And it sets the stage for the final phase, transcension, which begins 42 weeks after elucidation,
Right. And transcension targets the spiritual subtle body.
promoting a safe, progressive Kundalini awakening and bioenergy crystallization.
Yes. And the safety aspect is key here.
It sounds so much more sophisticated than that cliché peeling an onion metaphor we always hear.
Peeling an onion implies just stripping things away. This is different.
It's more like tuning a grand piano. You can't just reach in and crank the highest, most delicate spiritual strings first.
No, they would snap.
Right. You have to anchor the bass strings and ensure the physical tension of the soundboard is perfectly balanced first.
That is exactly what potentiation and articulation achieve. You have to ensure the physical vessel can hold the increased voltage of a spiritual awakening.
So let's bring this out of the abstract energetic anatomy for a minute. What does this actually look like in everyday life?
Well, the first-hand clinical accounts in the sources provide a really compelling look at this.
Yeah, let's talk about Dr. Julie Tumun. She's a practitioner who documented her own progression through the method.
She reported some incredible shifts, profound mental clarity, balanced hormones, deeply restorative sleep.
But the relational impact she noted was what really stood out to me. She described a peaceful dropping away of unsupportive relationships.
Yes, no massive blowouts or drama.
People who just no longer aligned with her resonant frequency just naturally, peacefully exited her life.
We see a very similar systemic shift in the account of Brendan D. Murphy.
Right, he described his life organizing into a tapestry of synchronicity.
He found himself aligning completely with his soul's purpose, completely bypassing that Era 1 mechanistic struggle where you have to force every door open.
This highlights a massive philosophical distinction that Saul Luckman makes in his writings: the difference between curing and healing.
This raises an important question for all of us. Curing is an Era 1 concept. It's making a symptom go away externally.
Like taking a heavy painkiller for a chronic migraine. The pain is masked, but you've essentially given away your power to a chemical.
Exactly. You haven't learned anything about why the migraine manifested. Healing, on the other hand, is fundamentally different.
It's an active, integrated process of the body, mind, and spirit.
Yes. Luckman defines this path as stepping into conscious personal mastery.
So what does this all mean? It means regenetics is a co-creative process.
You cannot just strike a 528 hertz tuning fork, chant some vowels, and then wait passively for the universe to fix your life.
Right, while you refuse to change your actual daily habits. You need an open heart and genuine intention.
The torsion wave is a powerful catalyst, but your consciousness has to actively choose to integrate that new energetic geometry.
You're tuning your own instrument so you can play the music you were always meant to play.
That's a great way to put it. We transition from being passive victims of our genetics to being conscious authors of our potential.
To summarize what we've unpacked for you today, the regenetics method offers a truly fascinating structured pathway to accelerate well-being.
By utilizing Era 3 concepts of sound, intention, and potential DNA.
We explored how non-coding DNA acts as an active electromagnetic antenna. We traced the 42-week organic gestation cycles.
From potentiation sealing the fragmentary body, down through the archaeological descent of articulation, elucidation, and transcension.
It's a profound map for self-evolution. Which brings me to a final thought for you to ponder as we wrap up today's deep dive.
It's a big one.
Today we explored how specific linguistic codes, conscious intention, and a 528 Hz frequency can actively communicate with your genetic antenna.
It shows how responsive we really are.
Exactly. So if our DNA truly functions as a dynamic receiver, constantly listening for electromagnetic and resonant instructions, it makes you wonder,
Oh, absolutely.
what other daily sounds, ambient background noise, or just passing words are silently conversing with your genetic code right now, shaping your physical reality without you even realizing it?
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey today.
Yes, thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.